So in the previous class we have seen what is EC2 service in AWS and what are EC2 instances and what are the different types of instance families that are available in EC2, and we also seen how to create a new instance and how to stop it and how to terminate it. So whenever we create a EC2 instance, what are the different types of other subsections that will be populated. So that means like how the keys are populated, okay, how a security group is created, how a new volume is created. So all these parts that we have covered yesterday. Okay, so today what we are doing is like we'll see a brief about EC2 security groups, and we also go with the hands-on on EC2 security group. Okay, so security groups are the fundamentals of network security in AWS. They are the basic fundamental, okay, so security layer for each EC2 instance. They control how the traffic is allowed in or out of our EC2 instance. So you can see this diagram here. Okay, so okay, so the security group is attached to the EC2 instance here. Okay, change this. Okay, so here we have a security group which is attached to the EC2 instance. So I need to share my screen, right? Okay, are you able to see my screen now? Okay, fine. So at any point of time, if you cannot hear my voice or cannot see my screen, so you can unmute and tell me so that, okay, fine. Okay, so here security groups are the fundamentals of network security in AWS. So we are seeing today only completely about the security groups today. Okay, so they control how the traffic is allowed in or out of our EC2 instance. So here in the diagram you can see we have an EC2 instance here, and a security group is attached to the EC2 instance, and here from the internet or from the World Wide Web, okay, from our local systems through internet, we are trying to connect to EC2 instance. We are sending some traffic to EC2 instance, and here the security group will act as a security guard for our EC2 instance. So whenever a inbound traffic is coming into our EC2 instance, the security group will ask this inbound traffic, so on which port you are trying to enter into my EC2 instance. If the inbound traffic says I am going into your EC2 instance using port 80, and if the security group checks whether the port 80 is allowed or not. So if it is allowed, it allows inbound traffic into the EC2 instance. So if the port 80 is not mentioned in the security group list, okay, what it will do is it will deny the access, and it will stop the inbound traffic with it stop entering the inbound traffic into this EC2 instance. Okay, so for easy purpose, try to remember this security group will act as a security guard for your EC2 instance. It allows the traffic only through which the ports are listed in this security group. So if the port number is not listed in this security group, it won't allow any traffic, okay, inside EC2 instance. Similarly, if the traffic is going outside, okay, from EC2 instance to the internet, okay, so then what it will say is, so then it will also check, so it will ask on which port you are trying to go out from this EC2 instance. Okay, so if the ports list is mentioned in the security group, then only it will allow the outbound traffic. Okay, so this is how the instance security groups works. Okay, security groups only contains allow rules. So that means by default the security group denies all the entry of the traffic. That means it won't allow any traffic into the EC2 instance by default. It will allow only the ports which you have mentioned in the security groups. Other than the port which you have mentioned in the security group, it won't allow any other ports to the EC2 instance. So by default, the groups contains only allow rules. So we cannot write any deny rules. We cannot say deny this particular port. If we allow that port, it will allow that port, or else it will not allow any port. So the ports which are listed in the security group are only allowed into EC2 instance. Security groups rules can referenced by IPs or by security groups. So you can allow a specific IP on a specific port, or you can allow a pool of IPs. So that will be allowed to the EC2 instance. Say like I am using a database server and I only want to connect to that particular EC2 database server only through my IP. So that is in my office. So I don't want to allow all the other employees who are working in the office to connect to the DB2 the EC2 instance from their home. So what I will do is I can allow only my office IP to this EC2 instance, so that through that IP and that port only they will enter into the EC2 instance. They cannot connect to EC2 instance from their home or any other location with different IPs. So this is one of the strong feature which provides much security for your EC2 instance. So we'll go and see what is security groups, and we'll create a security group. So or like we'll use the security group which we have already created with the EC2 instance. So what the security groups do is they regulate access to ports. So we can give access to different ports here. So here these are the ports. And authorize the IP ranges, so that are IPv4, IPv6. So if you see here in the second line, in the first line if you see 0.0.0.0, this means it allows all IPs. It allows any IP through port 80 into our server. So HTTP port 80 is a HTTP port. So it is being allowed by all the IPs which are entering into my EC2 instance. So from anywhere I can connect to my EC2 instance using port 80. But here if you see the second line here, the port 22 is a SSH port. So this SSH is called secure shell. So these are mainly used to connect to your instance with command line. We will see that hands-on in our coming classes. So but I don't want other people to enter into my EC2 instance only except from my IP. So here I can mention my IP. And I can say only allow SSH port 22 port in my EC2 instance only from this particular IP. And I can also add some custom TCP IPs also. And I can allow them based on my requirement. Here like I am allowing 4567 custom TCP port. And I am allowing it from anywhere, any IP. So we'll do this in the hands-on part, and we need to learn something about it. So for example, see, this is a EC2 instance, and we have a security group, inbound security group and outbound. So we have one security group where we have inbound and outbound rules. So in the inbound rules I have mentioned the port 22 I have mentioned an IP address an IP address is allowed on port 22 to enter into my EC2 instance. So whenever I mentioned an IP address with port 22, so similarly like this. So here we have a port 22 with an IP address allowed. Only this IP address only can access the port 22 to my instance. So here see, so if I try to connect to my EC2 instance using from this particular IP address system, so I'll be able to enter into my EC2 instance. So if I try with other computer with the same 22 port, so it will stop my access here and it won't allow me inside to the EC2 instance. Similarly, so all the outbound traffic it will allow from EC2 instance to the World Wide Web. So by default the outbound traffic is allowed, all ports will be allowed in the outbound traffic below, because we don't know like from which port, so we will be sending that particular data to outside of the server. So by default we can say all the outbound rules are allowed to all ports. That means you can send any data out from the instance, and all the inbound rules are closed. That means you cannot send any data into the EC2 instance when you create a new EC2 instance. So after creating EC2 instance, you need to open that security group and you need to allow all the ports which you want to access. Okay, and if you want to deny any particular traffic that you want to send out of your particular EC2 instance, then you need to mention that port in EC2 outbound rules, security group outbound rules. Okay, so one point you need to remember is by default all the inbound rules are denied, so they won't allow any inbound rules. By default all the outbound rule ports are allowed. Okay, so and these are some points that you need to know about security groups. So the security groups can be attached to multiple instances. So if you create a security group, and that security group you can add it to any number of instances. Okay, so those like rules which you have mentioned in the security group will be applicable to the instances which you have attached to security group. Okay, lock it down to the region in VPC combination. As I already said in the previous class, all the sub-services in the EC2, okay, including EC2 and EC2 sub-services, are all these services are region specific. So if you create a security group in one region, so that will be available in only that region. So you cannot use that particular security group in other regions. So all the security groups are region specific, okay, similar to EC2. And coming to the security groups, they are not inside EC2 instances. Okay, so they are outside EC2 instances. Okay, and they act like if traffic is blocked, the EC2 instance won't see it. Okay, so if the traffic is blocked in the security groups, so that won't enter into the EC2 instance. Okay, we need to understand these security groups are outside EC2, so they are attached to EC2 but they are not inside EC2. Okay, and it is good to maintain one separate security group for SSH access. So we need to create, it is a good practice to create one separate security group for the SSH access. Okay, so SSH means secure shell, that is like which is used to access your EC2 instance through command line. So if your application is not accessible, okay, then it is a security group issue. So whenever you find you are running an application in a EC2 instance but you are not able to connect to it, so that means like first thing you need to check is you need to check whether you have allowed this particular port in the security groups or not. So if your application is not accessible, first thing you need to do is you need to check your security groups whether the particular ports are allowed to the EC2 instance or not. Okay, if your application gives connection refused error, then it is an application error and it is not launched. Okay, so if it is timeout, then it is security group issue, but if it is any connection refused error, so then it is okay, not the security group issue, it's your application issue. Okay, so as I already said, all the inbound traffic is blocked by default, so there won't be any allowing of ports by default in the inbound traffic, and all the outbound traffic is authorized by default, so all the ports are allowed in outbound traffic by default. Okay, so these are the things that you need to remember when coming to EC2 security groups. Okay, so and here we are referring to the security group diagram. So for example, say we have an EC2 instance here and it was attached to a security group. Okay, so we can attach multiple security groups to a single instance, and all the security groups which are attached to the, and we can also attach a security group inside a security group. For example, here we have an EC2 instance and here we have another security group 1 which is attached to the EC2 instance, and I have other few more instances and they are attached to security group, okay, and security groups, other security group. So what I'm doing is I can add this particular security group 2 to this security group 1, so that all these particular rules which are in this security group will be allowed, okay, or this security group is attached to EC2 instance, right, and this EC2 instance will be able to access my other first EC2 instance, okay. So if I add a security group which is already attached to the EC2 instance to my EC2 security group, that means this particular instance will be able to access this particular EC2 instance with the particular IP here. And the security group, I will have another instance which have another security group, and we also adding this security group to this security group, okay. So so one point you need to remember is we can add a particular IPs, okay, or we can allow this particular all IPs using 0.0.0./ or you can also add a security group inside a security group. So the security group which is attached to this EC2 instance, okay, so if you add the security group to our other instance security group, then what happens is this particular instance, okay, which is attached to this security group will be allowed to access this first EC2 instance, okay. So here we have other security group 3, but we haven't added it to our security group of this EC2 instance, so it won't allow this EC2 instance to connect to this EC2 instance, okay, our first EC2 instance. So one point you need to remember here is we can also add security groups to other security groups, okay. So here we need to understand few points about what are these ports, okay. So these ports are something which is allowed or denied to enter into the any server. So that may be a Linux or that may be a Windows or any server. So these are some like popular ports that you need to remember. So port 22 is a secure shell, so that will be used to log in into your Linux instances using command line. So if you want to enter into any Linux instance from your clients or from your local system, so then you need to enter into that server using this particular port 22. So if you want to transfer any files, so 21 is called FTP, file transfer protocol. If you want to transfer any files or upload any files into your instance, then you need to access port 21, okay. And in this port 22 only we have SFTP, okay, that means a secure shell transfer protocol. That means we are entering into this particular EC2 instance using secure shell and we will transfer the files, okay. So this will be done by port 22. And port 80 is HTTP, where our websites are being launched and running, okay. So 80 is a default port, so if you are using 80 port, so we don't need to mention the port 80, okay. So all the website which we are seeing, like if you enter google.com, so google.com will be running on port 80, so we don't need to mention port 80. By default all the HTTP, okay, websites are running on port 80. So here 443 is a HTTPS port, so HTTPS is a secured website, okay. If you see any websites with a log symbol, okay, on the top, so if you go to google.com, so here if you see we are having a log symbol here, so any websites with this log symbol are called HTTPS protocol, so they are secured with a certificate. So all these HTTPS websites will be running on port 443, and so most of the websites which are like running now, those all websites are HTTPS websites only, okay. So here you need to understand difference between HTTP and HTTPS. So HTTP are just a normal websites and HTTPS are secured websites, okay. And 3389 is a RDP, that means remote desktop protocol. So if you are using a Windows instance, you need to use this remote desktop, because like Windows instance is graphical user interface, and if you want to use login into Linux instance, we will use 22 because Linux is a command line interface. Okay, so these are some ports which you need to understand. Okay, so before this we will go into security groups here. So I am opening my console, AWS console. So we have already created an instance in the previous class. We'll try to run that first, and we also hosted a sample web page in that particular EC2 instance, and we'll see how it is running or not. So I need to be in my Mumbai region because yesterday in the previous class we have created an instance in Mumbai region, and here see we have one instance, and we have one volume, and we have one key pair, and we have two security groups. So one is the default one and the other is the one which we have created in our previous class. So here, so whenever you come and see here, if you don't find any instances here, see by default it will show only the running instance. So if you want to see the stopped instance also, so remove this and you can see the instances which are stopped. So I'll click this, I'll go to instance states and I'll start my instance again. So whenever we are not using our instances, it's better to keep it shut down or stop so that it won't cost us. Okay, so it will cost us every minute where we are using. So if I am using it for 5 minutes, it's okay, I used it for 5 minutes, and if I stopped it for half an hour and again I started it and used it for 15 minutes, so then it will charge only for the 20 minutes of running time which the instance is running. Okay, so per hour if it is taking 100 rupees for example, and it will charge only for the time for which like 15 minutes it will charge. So that means like fourth time of so that means it will charge only 25 rupees for 15 minutes. Okay, so you will pay only for what you are using in AWS. Okay, so now my instance is running. So this is my public IP, right? So I'll copy this public IP, I'll paste it here, and see this is my web page. So here I am able to see my web page here, and this is my private IP. So we'll go to our security groups. So there are two ways to get into security groups. Either you can go here, and here we can see so what are the ports that are allowed and what is our security group name and what is the inbound traffic and outbound traffic. So see, by default we are allowing only 2 ports here, and by default all the port ranges are allowed in our outbound traffic. So here 0.0.0.0/0, this is called a CIDR block. So by using this particular notation we can able to allow a single IP or a pool of IP. So for example, we'll go here, and if you want to go into this particular security group, either you can click this here, or we have an other option directly as security groups in the network and security tab. So if I click here, I can see all my security groups. So this is the one security group which is by default created when with the EC2. So this is our security group which we are using, is 49A40. So if you go to here, here our security group will be, see, 49A40. Okay, so I'm going to my security group. So this is my security group, I am selecting it. So here you can see, so what are the inbound rules, what are the inbound rules, so what are the outbound rules. So I'm going to inbound rules, and if I want to edit this, I can edit this like this. Okay, so here we are allowing HTTP port, okay, from all the traffic. Okay, so that means if I try to enter into my instance using HTTP port, it will allow us. Okay, so these particular notations we can also give like multiple IP address pool also. For example, say I have some IP addresses start in my office there are like 20 systems, and all the IP start with 172 dot like 54.0.1 or 1.1, and the second IP will be like the same IP which starts with 1.2, 1.3, so on. So I have all these IPs, so which starts with 172, and all the first 3 points are same, and only the ending will be changed in each IP address. Okay, if I want to allow, but I want to allow all these particular IPs to access my 80 port or my other any ports. Okay, I want to create a custom port like 99000. So I want to allow this port into this instance from all these IPs. Okay, so instead of creating each IP within each record, so what we'll do is we'll use the CIDR notation. This is called CIDR notation. So if I want to allow this, what I will do is, so I'll copy this and I'll paste this here, and instead of 1 I'll give 0 here, and I'll give slash 24. So here see, we are getting slash 24 and 32. So if you give slash 24 and slash 24 here, what it will do is it will allow all the IPs which are starting from 172.54.1, and this can be of any number. So it will allow 1 to 255. Okay, so all this pool of 255 IPs will be allowed using 99000 port for my EC2 instance. Okay, so this is something you need to understand. Okay, so but if I want to allow all the IPs which start with 172 and 54, and the ending 2 part can be any number, so what I will do is I can enter 172.54.0.0/16. okay, so each remember, like each point will be of 8.8. so if I'm using these 2 points, then we use 8 plus 8 16. So if I'm using these 3 points, same, then 8 plus 8 plus 8, that is 24. So if I want to allow a single IP, so that I want to allow only this IP 1.1 only, so I don't want to allow all these IPs, then what we'll do is we'll give, so this 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, so that is 32. If you give like this, then it will only allow this single IP to access this port, okay, for your EC2 instance. Okay, so if you give 0.0 slash 0.0.0.0 0 dot 0 dot, so if you give like this, this means, so we are not giving anything, so we'll give slash 0. So this means you are allowing all IP addresses on port 9900, okay, to get inbound into your EC2 instance. So this is how this notation will be given. Okay, so these are called CIDR notations. Okay, so this will not come in exam, but like you need to understand, like you can give. So or else if you have 100 IPs, you don't need to add all these rules for this 100 IPs. Okay, you just need to get the sequence of these IPs, and you need to allow them, okay, based on the prefix. So coming to our security groups here our HTTP port is allowed to all my traffic, so all my IPs. So that's why I am able to connect it to. So if you get something like not secure, this is HTTP call. So if you see here, so this is HTTP call. Okay, so this is running in a HTTP port. If you get something like HTTPS, then it is running on 443 port. Okay, so now I am able to connect to my EC2 instance with HTTP port because it is allowed here. So now what I'll do is I'll delete this access here, and I'll save this rule, and we'll check. See, now if I run this, see, now I am unable to get into my EC2 website, so it is going to an infinite loop. So if you are running any website in instance, and if you are unable to connect it on your running, when you run it here, so it means that these particular ports are not open in your security group. So you need to allow that in your security group. So I'm going back to my security group here. I'm going to inbound rules, and again I'm going to add this particular rule. Okay, so here I'm adding this particular HTTP port, and I'm going to add it for all IPs, and I'm saving it here. So now if I hit enter, see, now I'm able to open my web page. So it is not loading. Okay, this is how we allow or deny the traffic into our EC2 instance. Okay, and we'll see how we'll give a custom IP also. So here I'm opening my EC2 instance, I'll open my EC2 inbound rules, security group inbound rules. I'll check my IP, my public IP address. So this will give my public IP address. If I click here, so this is my public IP address which I am using now. So the current system which I am using now, based on the internet, it will give me my public IP. So what I'll do is I'll allow only this IP, okay, in the security groups. For that single, if we want to allow single IP, we need to give /32. Okay, that means like 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, 32. So I am saving these rules. If I go here and I hit enter, see now I am able to. So if you enter this particular IP in your local system, the system which you are using now, you will be unable to access this. For example, I'll try to connect to VPN, and that will change. This connecting this VPN will change my IP. So see here, I have given my IP as 103.49.55.44. So if I check my IP address here again, so now see my IP address has changed. So now we'll try to access this. If I try to access this now, see again, so it is not accessing my website because now my IP has changed, and this IP which was changed, so which present I am using this IP, so this IP is not allowed to access the 80 port of my EC2 instance. So I'll be unable to connect to my EC2 instance. Okay, so this is how you can allow a single IP. So I'm going back, I'll switch off this VPN. So again, that means I'll get my old public IP. So see here, I got my old public IP, and if I go here, so see, if you are unable to connect to, it will give a gateway timeout. So now if I use this, see, now I am using the same IP which I have configured here, so that now I am able to connect to my EC2 instance with port 80. Okay, so this is how the EC2 instances and the security group works on EC2 instances. You can add any number of ports. Okay, so you can add a number of ports here, and you can add any number of IPs here. Okay, based on the requirement, you can attach all these ports and securities to your EC2 instance. Okay, fine. Coming back to the slides. So these are the ports which you have seen. Okay, and in this SSH port, so how we connect to our EC2 instance from our local PCs, okay, using this particular thing. So if you are using Mac, you will be able to connect with SSH clients, and there is a software called putty which we'll be seeing in our next class. Okay, so using this putty also you can connect to this EC2 instance, and there is something called EC2 instance connect. Okay, we'll be seeing about all this now. Just remember, there are three ways. Excuse me. There are three ways. One is SSH, and second is putty, and the third is EC2 instance connect. Okay, either of these three we can use to connect to our EC2 instances. So if you are using Mac, you will be able to connect with SSH and EC2 instance connect. If you are using Linux, you can use this SSH. So these are the operating systems. So the operating system which you are using in your local system. If you are using Windows 10, you will be able to connect to less than Windows 10. You will be connect to putty and EC2 instance connect. If you are using Windows OS, which is greater than version 10 or equal to version 10, then you can use all these three methods. Okay, with your to connect to EC2 instance. Okay, so how to connect to EC2 instance using SSH. So how to SSH into your EC2 instance if you are using Windows. So here we will see a hands-on session, and we will learn how to SSH into EC2 instance using Windows. And SSH is one of the most important function. It allows you to control a remote machine using a command line interface. So as we are saying, all these instances are in cloud, right? So we are not able to see them. We don't have any physical interaction with these servers, and they are not dedicated servers. They are deployed somewhere in the AWS clouds. Okay, but if you want to connect to their servers, so how you want to connect, how you will connect, and how we'll install our softwares and applications in that server. So to do that, we will use this SSH, okay, way to enter into our EC2 instance. So here say like we have a local system or a laptop or something. So using internet, so we'll connect to EC2 instance on port 22, and this port 22 is should be allowed in our security groups. Then only we will be able to connect into this particular EC2 instance. Okay, and today we will configure all the required parameters necessary for doing SSH on our Windows using a free tool called putty. Okay, so first we will see what is this putty and how we will connect into our EC2 instance using this putty. So now I am using a Mac system. What I will do is, like, I think most of you are using Windows system. I'll connect to my Windows machine in AnyDesk, and I'll show you how we'll do this in Windows. So here I have connected to my Windows machine. So this is a Windows PC. I think you are able to see this. You can see this, right? My Windows machine. Wait, I'll keep this again. Okay, so this is my Windows PC. So this is running a version which is less than 10, so it is running on Windows 8. So this putty method is same for all operating systems. So that is like if you are using Windows 7 or Windows 11 to Windows 11, so it will be same for all the operating systems. So first, to use this putty, we need to download this software. So putty is nothing but a SSH software. So what I'll do is I'll download this putty software. You'll go to google.com, enter putty. So here you'll get the first link. You can download this. Okay, here you'll get download putty. So click this. So here we are trying to install it for the 64-bit system. So I'll click then the first link, and it will be download here. And here I have already downloaded my EC2 key, which we have created during the setup of our instance. So like yesterday when we set up our instance, we have created a key file. So I have already transferred this key file to this system. Okay, so I am opening this and install this putty software. Install it. And here we have already downloaded this PM file. And if you remember, when we are creating a key pair file, we have two options. One is PEM and one other is PPK. So if you don't have a PPK file, so that means whenever you are using this putty software, you need to use PPK file instead of PEM file. So we'll see how to convert this PEM to PPK also now. So now I have installed my putty software here. So what I'll do is I'll go to search, and here I'll search with putty. So here we have two things. One is this putty and other is this putty keygen. So first we will use this putty keygen. Here I'll open this. I think this session will close in 3 minutes. What we'll do is we'll connect it again. So I'll close this session and we'll connect it again. I think I have let it for a long time. Okay, so here we have installed our putty software. Okay, and here we got something like putty key generator. So if you have a PEM file here, so we have downloaded a PEM file while creating key file while creating an instance, and I want to convert this to PPK. Okay, because if I want to use putty, I need to use that private key. So PPK is a private key. So what I can do is I can convert this PEM to private key using this putty key generator. So open this putty key generator and just click on load. Okay, so anyway, I have created a document for this, so I'll show you that. I'll share that to you, so don't worry about this. I'll give this particular, I have created this particular PPT with all the screenshots and what you need to do. I have really written in this, so I'll share this to you, so don't worry of taking any like notes. I'll give this to you, so just see like what I'm doing and understand what is happening and how I'm connecting to this particular. Okay, so here I'll click on load, and here I will go to my I'll select my PEM file here. So if you cannot see any PEM files here, so by default if you cannot see any PEM files here, what you can do is you'll select this all files, then you'll be able to see this. So date, so my file name is my EC2 key. So here see, I'll select that PEM file. So here you'll get something like the particular PEM file is successfully imported. Click on OK, and here you have a button now which is called save private key. So click on save private key, and it will ask like this. So you click on S, and here it will ask you to give a name for your PPK file. So I'll give my EC2 key. So it will be saved as a PPK file here with the same extension. So I'll save it on my desktop. So I'll save here. Okay, so now if I go to my desktop, I see files with .ppk. So see here, I got my EC2 key here. Okay, so now you will use this particular EC2.ppk file, okay, to connect to my SSH instance. So I'll close this. Now what we'll do is we'll open. So we have successfully created a PPK file. Now we use putty to connect to our server. So I'm using putty here. So I'll try to pin this to my taskbar. Okay, so here what we'll do is, this is the interface of this putty. So here we need to define a hostname and IP. Okay, and we should be able to connect to that particular EC2 instance. Before that, what we'll do is we'll go and see, so what is our EC2 IP address. Okay, so I'll go to my EC2 instance and I'll find my IP address here. So this is my EC2. So we'll open another tab. So we'll go to my console. So we'll go to EC2 and we'll go to our instance and get the IP there. So I'll go to instances. So this is my public IP. So I'll copy this IP and I'll go to AnyDesk here. So I'll give my IP address here. So this is my IP address and I'm trying to connect it with port 22, which I have already allowed in my security group. And here I'll give that name as my EC2 instance. Okay, and I'll save this so that this will be added to my putty here, putty list. So if I click this and I'll just load it, and if I open this, so it is asking like this, and here it is saying, so enter a username, so to enter into this instance. So by default there is a user, so which is called EC2-user. So this particular user is already by default created, okay, in our when our EC2 instance is launched. So this user is already created in the instance. So we are trying to connect it with EC2-user. So when I click enter, see here it is saying no supported authentication methods are available. So this is because we haven't configured our key here. So it won't allow us to log in without using a key. So I close this. I am opening this putty again. So I have this again saved. If I click on this and click on load, so all these parameters will be loaded, and here only I will give EC2-user. So what this is saying is, so log in into this particular instance with this username, and to give that SSH key we'll go to here like this SSH here, and here we have auth, okay, and in this auth we have credentials, and here it is asking for a private key file for authentication, okay. So what I'll do is I'll click on browse, and here I already saved my EC2 key here on my desktop. I'll open this, and again I'll go to my sessions and say save. So now this particular username and IP and this authentication credentials are saved for my particular EC2 instance with this name. So I click on load and I click on open here now. So now see, so here it is saying authenticating with public key, and this authentication is successful. So now we have logged into our account with this username, okay. So I'll try to, if you want to increase the size of your text in this putty, you can go to here and change settings, and if you can go to appearance and you can click on change, and you can select the font size and click OK, apply. Okay, so I think now you are able to see this. So here see, so here we can see EC2 user. So we are logged in as an EC2 user, and here this is our private IP of the instance. So here you can type any of your Linux commands. You can ping google.com, so this will connect to your google.com and see whether it is able to connect or not, and you can run all your Linux commands here. So see, it is saying, so it is printing its username. So knowing that all these Linux commands is not necessary for the exam, but if you want to do anything with your inside your server, if you want to install any software in your server, or if you want to run any web application in your server, you need to learn this. So if you want to get out of this, you just click exit, or you can directly close that putty software. Okay, so this is how we will connect to EC2 instance using putty software. So you just need to download this and configure, okay, a connection with your IP address, okay, and you give your key file in this authentication, and then you are ready to connect to your EC2 instance here. Okay, so I'll share that PPT to you. So just today try to download this, and I think you have already created a sample instance. Open that instance, and whenever you stop and start an instance, then your IP address will change. So try to check your IP before connecting to that EC2 instance. So whenever you start it, you will get a new IP. So try to put that IP here and click on save, and it will be saved, and just open it, that you will be able to open that. Okay, so this is how we'll connect to our EC2 instance using putty software. Okay, and there is another way also, which is an easy way, so which is called EC2 Instance Connect. So it will be it makes us to connect to our EC2 instance within your browser only. So you don't need to install any putty software, and you don't need to use any key file that you have downloaded. Okay, so the magic is it will use a temporary key which is uploaded to EC2 by AWS. So, and it works only with the EC2 Amazon Linux, and if you choose any other operating system like Windows or Linux, CentOS or Mac OS, so then this EC2 Instance Connect will not work. It will only work with Amazon Linux 2 instances. Okay, and you also need to make sure the port 22 is open in your firewall, so that is in your security groups, then only you will to use this EC2 instance. Okay, so we'll see how to connect to that particular. So here instance using EC2 connect. So here this is my instance site and this is my public IP, and here if I see in my security groups I'm already allowing my port 22, so everything is fine. So here if you see there is a option called connect. So whenever you select a particular EC2 instance, and that EC2 instance must be a of type, so if you Amazon Linux, so this platform should be Amazon Linux, then only you will be able to connect to this particular instance using instance connect. So when you click on this connect, you will get this particular thing. So here we have EC2 instance connect. Okay, so it's showing our public IP, so to which we are connecting, and it is also showing the username. So if you have any other username if you have created, you can give your username, but by default it has created a EC2 user, so it will take this username to connect. So if you create any other user with your own name, you can enter it here, and if you click on connect, so what it will do is it will create a temporary key file, PM key file in the background, and it will allow us to connect to the EC2 instance. So if I click on connect here, it will open me another tab. So it is establishing a connection. So here it will show what is the public IP and what is the private IP and what is the name of your instances. So if you don't want this, you can close this. So here also we got the same thing. See, so here also you can do the same Linux commands. Okay, so if I want to get anything here, I can get the date and time, and if you want to see what is my username which is logged in, I can see. So I can enter all my Linux commands, I can use my instance here. Okay, so in our sessions we will be mostly using this instance connect instead of using putty, but like in the real time most of the people will be using putty software only, because whenever you want to connect to different servers, you don't need to come and open this browser and do all this. So you just go to this putty software, you will select the name from the list and you click on it and load and connect it. So in the real time most of the people will be using this putty software. Okay, and in our sessions mostly we will be using this because we won't enter into this particular instances for like one or two or couple of times we'll go into this particular instance and we'll do, because all these Linux commands, those will be not our target. So our target is to learn all the services in AWS. So this is not needed. So if you want to close this, just close this tab and it will be, the session will be discontinued. Okay, so this is about the instance connect. So you can connect easily from your AWS console only to run any kind of Linux commands into our particular instance, and the only thing is you need to allow, and a particular image should be Amazon Linux, and you need to allow port 22. So let's see, if I remove my port 22 here, I'm going to my security groups and I'll edit my inbound rules. So I'll change this to 0.0.0.0 and I'll remove this particular SSH access. So I save the rules and I'm going to instance, and now if I try to connect to this particular instance, see, it is trying to connect but it is failing to connect to instance because we have stopped the SSH access to our EC2 instance. That means we are saying, so I don't want any other people to connect to my EC2 instance now. So it is not allowing. So if I go back to in my instances, I go to security groups and I open my security group inbound rules and edit it. So if you keep like this, you are not able to log in to your SSH instance, including with your putty or software also. So you definitely need to add a SSH rule. So and that need to allow a particular IP or all the IPs, and then only you will be able to connect to your EC2 instance. So see, now I have allowed this and I am able to connect to this EC2 instance. Okay. So this is about the security groups, and we have few more concepts we need to learn. So we'll go through here. So while coming to the purchasing options, so we have seen we can select any number of instances, okay, in EC2, and we can select them and we can launch them. So what are the different types of instances and what are the purchasing options? And this you need to know for the exam purpose, because there are some instances you need to know because this is the main thing for an architect, right? So if a client comes to you and say like, I want this particular environment, I want to run this application or the database in my in AWS, and this is my budget, so I want to maintain my AWS environment within this budget. So the budget is also a main constraint here for the clients. So you need to understand which type of instance you need to launch based on the client's requirements. Okay, so there are different types of instances. So first thing is we have on-demand instances. Okay, so these on-demand instances are like the instances which we are using now. Okay, so they are used for short workloads and predictable price, and we'll pay by second. So for every second which we are using, we'll pay for that only. So this is the one we have already launched. So by default, if you launch any instance, that will be a on-demand instance. Okay, and there are something called reserved instance, and that means you can reserve those instances either for 1 year or for 3 years. Okay, so if you use this reserved instance, these are mostly used for long workloads, and if you are running a project, you got a project and you are running it and you have a contract for the project for like 1 year or 3 years, so definitely you need to purchase that and you need to run that application. You know that you need to run that application for 3 years. Then what we will do is we will go for the reserved instances. Okay, so these reserved instances are a little bit cheap when compared to on-demand instances, and there are also a convertible reserved instances, and these are also used for long workloads with flexible instances. Okay, we'll see what is this in the coming slides. So and there is a saving plans also. So this is also similar to reserve plans, and it will be taken as 1 year or 3 years, and the commitment to an amount of usage, and this is mostly used for the long workload operations. And they are spot instances. These spot instances are like used for short workloads, and these are cheap when compared to all the types of instances. But what is like, we can lose this instance at any time. So these instances are something like a bidding instances. That means if you bid for this particular instances, if you bid for a particular instance and if you got it and if you are using it, and if some other people got there and they bid a much like a bit more amount than you, then what happens is they'll stop the instance for you and they will give that instance to the particular person who bid more than you. Okay, so these are less reliable. So these are mostly used for the short workloads or for the testing scripts, and if you want to test any scripts or if you want to run any small batch jobs, so then you will be using this particular spot instances. Okay, so we have something like a dedicated systems also, dedicated hosts. So what are these dedicated is like, if you want to book any physical servers, you can also do this with AWS. And dedicated instances, if you want a dedicated instance means, so when we create an instance, we cannot see like where it is being created, right? Okay, so that means it is being created somewhere in the cloud and we are being using those instances. Okay, so if you go for a dedicated instance, that means no other customers or no other other AWS like accounts will share your hardware. Okay, so mostly what this AWS do is they will keep a virtual big servers, and they'll procure a big servers, and they will make them as a virtual machines. So the hardware will be same, but the virtual machines will be served across the AWS account. So if you go for a dedicated instance, what they will do is they will not share the hardware with other AWS accounts. Okay, so they will keep a dedicated hardware for your particular EC2 instances. Okay, and capacity reservation. So this is one of the new thing that was introduced in AWS recently. So what it will do is it will reserve a capacity in a specific availability zone for any durations. If you use it or if you don't use it, okay, it will reserve some capacity, and you need to pay for that capacity if you use it or if you don't use it. Okay, so we'll go through this. So among these on-demand instances, reserved instances, and spot instances, so these three are most important, and the other things are not that much important because these three are widely used, and you won't get any questions out of this. But if you want to, if you get any other questions from this, like you will get on this on-demand, reserved, and spot instances. So we'll go to what is on-demand instance. So in on-demand instances, so we'll pay for what you use. So this will come with Linux and Windows operating systems, and this will bill per second. That means for every after first minute you will be charged for that minute. Okay, so all other operating systems like bill per hour. So if you are using Windows or Linux, it will bill per second, and if you are using any other operating system, it will use bill per hour. Okay, and it has the highest cost. Okay, so among all the instances types, so on demand has the highest cost, and you cannot pay full amount at a time. So if you want to pay for 1 year, so you are not able to pay like that, so because we will be charging only for per hour basis. Okay, so and there are no long-term commitments for this demand on demand instances. If you are running it, so you are paying for it, so there is no commitment like 1 year or 3 years commitments. Okay, so these are recommended for short term and uninterrupted workloads where they can't predict how the application will behave. Okay, so this is about on demand. And when coming to the reserved instance, it is up to 72%. You'll get up to 72% discount when compared to on demand instances. Okay, so you reserve a specific instance attributes. So that means like you will say I want this type of instance in this region with this configuration and with this OS. Okay, so you reserve like that. Okay, so the reservation period will be either 1 year or 3 years. So if you take it for 1 year, you will get a discount. If you take it for 3 years, you will get more discount. Okay, so the payment options will be no upfront. That means you will pay so like on the hourly basis only for 1 year, or sometimes if you pay like half of the amount I will pay now, and remaining amount I will pay for each hour for 1 year, then you will get a little much more discount. And if you pay all the amount at and on the beginning only, so while taking the instance only, if you pay all the amount, so then you will get more discount. Okay, so reserved instance scopes are like the regional and zonal, so they will be available only in the particular those availability zones only. Okay, so they are recommended for steady state usage applications like databases. So databases, if you configure a database, we won't be changing it. Either the applications will be changed, but the database will not be, configurations will not be changed. So will most of the databases, they'll take the reserved instances. Okay, so you can buy and sell the reserved instance in the marketplace if you want to. So you have took the instance for 3 years, on some reasons you have used it for 1 year, and the next 2 years the project has gone closed, and this 2 years if you want to use this instance, you can either buy it in the market or sell it in the marketplace to others. Okay, so that you will not be get lost. Okay, and in this reserved instance we also have a convertible reserved instance. So here we saw in the second point, right? So when you buy a reserved instance, you need to specify a specific instance type, a specific region, a specific configuration and operating system. So you will be able to create an instance only in this particular scope. If you take a reserved instance, you cannot make you cannot create an instance in other region. You cannot change the type of the instance. Okay, so but when you come to this convertible reserved instance, they'll give you a flexibility to change the instance type, instance family, operating system, and all. Okay, so as you are getting multiple flexible options, so it will be a less discount when compared to this EC2 reserved instances. Okay, so coming to spot instances, so as we said, it is one of the cheapest, okay, instances in EC2. So we can get discount up to 90% when compared to on demand. So instances that you can lose at any point of time if your max price is less than the current spot price. So some people will be bidding for this particular EC2 instances, and if any bid crosses the amount which you have bid for this instance, they will collapse this instance for you, and they will give that instance to the person who bid higher than you. Okay, so this is the most cost effective instance in the AWS. So as I said, this is one of the most cheapest, okay, instance in EC2. So what are the use cases to use this spot instances? We can use this for batch jobs and data analytics, image processing, any distributed workload with flexible start and end time. That means we can start it anytime and end it anytime. So there is no so important for the jobs. So then we can run it in the spot instances. And this is not recommended for the critical jobs and databases, because we don't know when the EC2 instance will be collapsed. So to understand it more clearly, here we'll take an example. So here we have a say like we have a big resort here, and when coming to on demand, so if you want to come and stay in the resort whenever you like, and you pay for only the time which you have spent in the resort, so that is like on demand. So you come to and stay a resort whenever we like, and we pay for the full price of that room. Okay, so resort instance are something you are like to plan, you are like planning ahead, and if you want to plan to stay for a long time, so if you take it for a long time, you will get a good discount for that particular rooms in that hotel. Okay, so saving plan is something you pay certain amount per hour for certain period and stay in the room type. So if you are being in a small room, if you want to go for a big room for some time, okay, so for say like in the weekdays I want to stay in a small room, and in the weekends I want to go to a king room or a suite room, so at that time you can go to that and you can pay for that amount. Okay, so spot instance are something the whenever the hotels allow people to bid for the empty rooms. So say like the hotels has empty rooms, and they are saying whoever gives high amount, we'll give that rooms to you. So whenever you give a much higher bid, then they will give allocate that room for you, and whenever someone people came and they bid more than you, then you will be losing that particular room. So dedicated host is something we pick the entire building or the resort. So dedicated host is something like I don't want to share this particular uh, resort with anyone. I want all this resort dedicated. So that means we will book the entire building or resort, which cost us high. And capacity reservation is something you book a room for a period with full price, even if you don't want to use it. So you don't know like if you want to use it or not, but you'll still reserve a room in the particular resort. So that is called capacity reservation. Hope like based on this example, I think you can understand it clearly what are the different types of, okay, instances in AWS EC2. And here we are getting a price comparison between all these uh, different types of instances. For example, if we take M4 large type of instance in US East 1, so based on the price type you will get this. So on demand you will get for like 0.10 cents per hour. If you take spot instance, it is like 0.03, which is 61% off than on demand. If you go to reserved for 1 year, you'll get for this price. If you go to for reserved for 3 years, you'll get even more discount. Okay, so if you pay all amount in like at a time in the beginning, you'll get even more discount here. So, and if you go for EC2 savings plan, it will come like this. So if you go for convertible, you'll get a little discount. But if you go to dedicated host, you'll get the same price compared to on demand. Okay, so if you get to dedicated host reservation, then you'll get 70% off. So mostly like all the instances they will be using is for small workloads they will use on demand. For like unimportant like which are tasks are not important, they will run in spot instances. And if you have a long term projects and you need to run the servers for sure, then you'll go for this upfront reserved instances. Okay, fine, that is all for the today's class. So we'll see, we have seen what are the security groups, we saw how to connect to our EC2 instance using putty, we saw how to connect using EC2 instance connect, we saw what are the different types of instances, and based on our requirement what instance need to be picked, and we saw what are the pricings of different types of EC2 instances. Okay, so that's it for today. So tomorrow and day after tomorrow also we'll be going with the same EC2. In the next classes we'll go with the EC2 concepts only, because like EC2 is one of the biggest service in AWS, so we'll take a pretty much time to cover all the topics in EC2. Okay.